53% of Americans think owning a business is a viable alternative to a traditional career. 70% believe that owning a business provides more opportunities as it relates to career stability and financial growth, more than traditional jobs in today's economy.
You can look at the headlines right now about, job security. There's so many reorgs and layoffs and just the changing landscape of the world and business. So there's still a lot of uncertainty out there. So one of the things that we're really good at doing is justifying the comfort and the safety of the space we're in when we can.
Welcome to Career Compass, mapping your future. Visit yourcareerrevolution.com today to get your free guide on the benefits of working with a career ownership coach. Welcome back to Career Compass, the podcast that is focused on helping you map your future. Today and in upcoming episodes, we will be talking about, are careers broken? And what the new data reveals. Just a quick reminder, if you are familiar with our podcast, then you already know a little bit about Dr. Mike and me. And as you may recall, in season 1, we covered a whole bunch of things from the 10 steps to your ideal career. We introduced the concept of your income, your lifestyle, your wealth and equity goals, needs and expectations, and how to achieve them. And then what gets in the way. Remember, Doc, we were talking about negative thinking and the fear of failure. We even introduced a concept called battered career syndrome. And we were challenging our audience to stop and think and say, gosh, could I be suffering from that? We spoke about the comparison trap, and I think there was an episode on the corporate comfort zone and probably so many more. But Doc, I am so excited because one thing that I do know for sure is that it seems like we struck a chord with our audience in season 1. So I'm thrilled. I am so thrilled that we have another season lined up where we get to help even more people. Where we get to challenge people to think about their thinking. So for those of you new to the Career Compass, I think a quick introduction would be in order. So Doc, if you don't mind, why don't you go first and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much, T. It's so great to see you again, and I'm excited about this as well. It's going to be a good one. And hello to all the listeners. So my name is Dr. Mike Smith. Just as a brief background, I spent 26 years in the Air Force. At the height of my career, I had the privilege of serving as the first sergeant for the Air Force Thunderbirds, traveling the world, doing all the air shows, one of the coolest jobs ever. Highly recommend it. And then I retired from active service, went into the corporate world, and became a senior leader in a Berkshire Hathaway Energy Company, working for Warren Buffett and Greg Abel. Along the way, I got my PhD in organizational psychology. And eventually I hit that wall, right, where I didn't feel I was making a difference or enough of an impact anymore in the corporate world. That internal struggle, a lot of the things that we've been talking about and will be talking about hit me pretty hard. And so the struggle can be real. And I eventually made the decision to walk away from the nice, cushy job and the title and the steady paycheck to dive into the world of entrepreneurship. And fast forward a few years later, and here I am. And it's the best decision I've ever made. Wasn't an easy one at the time, but it turned out to be the best.
Gosh, no. It takes courage, right? And what do the statistics say? Roughly 3/4 of the population has this desire to want to be self-sufficient, but less than 5% will actually ever take action. So that is why we're here. I don't think entrepreneurship is for everybody. I don't think business ownership is for everybody, but we're here to just kind of, take a pulse of where people are at and take a vacation from the current reality and explore what is possible. And that is really where I fit in. My name is Tamara Loring, for those of you who don't know me. Most of my friends and colleagues simply call me T because nobody's quite ever sure how to pronounce my name. But for over the last 24 years, one of the things I've obsessed over, I've been affiliated with the Entrepreneur Source, but my dream, my obsession has been to help people reimagine and reclaim the life of their dreams while figuring out what I want to do when I grow up, right? And one of the things that I appreciate about our conversations is because it is so personal to me. I love your story, Doc, right? About how you made the transition. And I know the mental movies that I was playing over the years where I would talk myself out of what would be good for me, what would be possible, because the comfort zone and the devil I knew was more comfortable than the devil I didn't, right? So we're just here to talk about like what small steps can we take to build confidence? What can we do to really get educated about what is possible? And that's really what season 2 is all about. With so many people questioning the trajectory, the longevity, and even the viability of their careers, we've decided to partner with the Harris Poll last fall. And we did a national generational career confidence survey. Now, say that fast. So, a national generational career confidence survey of over 2,000 adults. And so today and in upcoming episodes, one of the things that we'll do is share the results of the poll and highlight and discuss what maybe most of our listeners already know to be true. It's like, duh, yeah, like, did we need a poll to kind of highlight that? But I love the fact that some of the things that you and I've already discussed kind of rose to the surface, right? So one of the things that we saw in the poll is that ageism is real, whether it's legal or illegal to do that in the workforce. People say that my age seems to count against me, right? People are not willing to pay what I feel like I deserve. Other things that we saw in the survey was the impact, of course, of AI and automation. So you and I will be able to have discussions about what does that mean in the next year, but also in upcoming years, which jobs will be obsolete, which industries will be impacted. Some of the things that the survey highlighted was toxic work environments, right? Even when I speak to individuals who are exploring the entrepreneur source, or I get to speak to our coaches' clients, I hear it time and time again. Even many of our team members, people who've become employees, they're like, T, it's a very different world out there. So in a way, I don't even want to leave my bubble, but it's so unfortunate that so many people face toxic work environments. I mean, my gosh, I can't imagine getting up every day after day, year after year, just to face that on top of everything else, right? Life is hard enough. And then, of course, one of the things that we'll talk about is there such a thing as job security? And we'll talk about the viability of corporate careers versus entrepreneurial endeavors, like you already alluded to, and one of the things I already said, business ownership is definitely not for everyone, but that doesn't mean it's not at least worth exploring, right? So let's step back. Let's look at all the vehicles that are out there so that you can really make an informed choice. So I know it's going to be a jam-packed season. I said a lot there, Doc. I'd love for you to unpack a little bit of that and maybe give us a comment here or there.
Yeah, so everything that you said is spot on. And, one of the keys to this whole season that we're doing, as well as last season, I think the most important aspect of what we do and the message that we're trying to deliver is around awareness and education, right? That's what gives people the power to start to squash the fear and the uncertainty and truly, through the lens of objective reality, look at the opportunities that are out there and then decide whether it's right for them or not versus shutting down right up front. So that's what excites me the most, is the awareness and the education around the possibilities that truly are out there. So everything you said, spot on.
Yeah, we actually even have an acronym for what you just spoke about. We call it EAD. We're all about education, awareness, and discovery, right? So this is what we're going to do during this season and hopefully on today's episode also. And one of the things I know, Doc, that we can always count on you for is to just help us from the psychological lens, right? Because if we were logical creatures, we know what to do. There's actually a book that we quote in our Your Career Revolution book that talks about if how-tos were enough, we'd all be skinny, rich, and happy, right? So sometimes we gather the information and we can see where it's pointing us to, and yet there's this fear, there's this anxiety, there's this, all the yeah buts that come up in our head and all the excuses that prevent us from moving forward. So I always love it when you kind of help me understand not just why humans do what they do. I always feel like I learn a little bit more about myself, during every episode, because I'm like, yeah, I did the exact same thing. And as a matter of fact, as I share some of the statistics with you below, I want you to do exactly that, because one of the things, let me read this so I get it right here. When people were asked their opinions on traditional careers versus business ownership, here are the statistics that we found. 83% of Americans think owning a business is a viable alternative to a traditional career. 70% believe that owning a business provides more opportunities as it relates to career stability and financial growth, more than traditional jobs in today's economy. About 66% think business ownership offers more job security than working for someone else. Yet, when you talk about control over your career, 80% of employees say that starting or owning a business would give them more control over their career than a traditional job. And especially millennials are especially strong at 86, right? And so I kind of already alluded to the fact that, so that is what this poll is telling us. And then when asked whether they would want to have a job or not, 66% of employees still say that they prefer traditional job employment or traditional jobs, working for someone else versus owning their own business. So like I was looking at those statistics and I said, okay, over half, right, maybe even 60 or 70% say owning a job, taking charge of your career is the better option. And nothing points to the job. And yet when asked, would you rather have a job than a business? Most say, I want a job. What is happening there?
Yeah. Well, you kind of alluded to it earlier. I think one of the biggest things to start with is just generally speaking in society, that's kind of the way we've been programmed and brought up, right? For as long as I can remember, right? You get a job, work for the same company, a nice pension, a little bit of retirement, and just kind of go on with your life, stay there 30, 40 years. But that's really shifted and evolved. I mean, you can look at the headlines right now about, job security. There's so many reorgs and layoffs and just the changing landscape of the world and business. So there's still a lot of uncertainty out there. So one of the things that we're really good at doing is justifying the comfort and the safety of the space we're in when we can. So having a job to go to, which or believe is still going to be there. So you still have that paycheck versus stepping into the unknown. And that's really what it is, right? Just because we don't know about it or understand it or are educated on it, the entrepreneurship piece, we tend to associate that with negativity. Can't do it. Don't want to do it. Don't know what's going to happen. It could go south, right? All those things. But again, if you look at what's going on in the world right now in the business arena, a lot of uncertainty there as well. So again, I think that's what caused it. We have that false sense of safety, right? And security, because that's what we've been taught to know. And that's what, the majority of the world does, is has a steady job. And there's so many businesses all over that people work for. So again, I think it's just really that false, I guess, for lack of a better term, sense of security and comfort of having a full-time job, not realizing the potential of how much more you can enjoy and earn and contribute and provide value as an entrepreneur, which is what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, so that's one of those things, right, where logic and emotions kind of are in conflict. And maybe it's because we've been programmed, right? So even though
Mhm.
like what's worked for previous generations is like, it's industrial age thinking, right? Like go to school, work hard, get a higher education so that you can get a good job, so that eventually you can get a pension plan, right? Like you kind of like climb the corporate ladder. And so even though people are seeing that that is no longer working, when under pressure, maybe they hit that, they go back to that default mode, right? Because that's how the education system raised us. That's what we heard from our parents or maybe even our grandparents. So it is just very, very fascinating to me. As a matter of fact, and I know we didn't even speak about this component, but I'm trying to think like, what's happened post COVID. I mean, COVID was a weird time, right? Like, hey, everybody, go home and work from home. And then many people realize, like, wait a minute, maybe there's this virtual thing that I can do. And so many people quit their jobs and maybe move to more remote areas. And then suddenly the world changed again. It's like, hey, come back. And people are like, I just moved, like to a different state because I was able to work remotely, and now I cannot. So suddenly, I think they called it what the big regret then set in, right? That people probably quit their jobs prematurely and now they can't get the same job back. And recently I heard something called job hugging, right? So maybe they're looking at everything that's happened over the past, I don't know what, 5, 6 years.
Mhm.
Now, even though it's not their career aspirations or their dreams, or it doesn't even fill their cup, they're just holding onto what they have because the unknown is just so fearful. So feel free to comment on that. I mean, I could be off, but that's kind of what I'm seeing.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I work with a lot of clients right now in, Fortune 100 companies to entrepreneurs and startups. And, that same fear is out there on the corporate side everywhere. Again, a lot of reorgs going on, how to integrate AI in an ethical manner, right? Where you can still utilize and build trust with your teams and your people. And so it's very chaotic right now. Uh, I believe that now is a perfect time to at least consider, and like we talked about early, right? Aware, educate, discover the options that are out there. Probably more so now than ever.
Yeah, and I know I definitely benefited from it, and I think this is why I'm such a fan of something, well, the organization, the Entrepreneur Source, anyway, but the coaching methodology, right? Because I remember, 20 something years ago when I was doing some soul searching, and I recognized that the career I was in wasn't gonna help me live the life of my dreams. However, I was quick to say no to the things that I didn't even know much about, right? For instance, I remember my parents encouraging me saying, "Hey, I mean, we warned you, hospitality is a 24/7 type of job, right? You work when other people are having fun, nights, weekends, kiss them goodbye, holidays, forget about it," right? And yet that's what I signed up for. But I was at least astute enough to know that if I took my resume and sent it to another hotel, it wasn't going to change the nature of the business I happened to be in, right? So I really didn't want to shift from one location to another because it would just be a different brand, but the same expectations. But then when my parents said, well, just why don't you do your own thing? I came up empty, right? I thought, well, I don't have this idea that I want to take to the marketplace. I don't have this vision of how to, I don't know, elevate humanity or whatever it is. And therefore, I made it mean I'm not an entrepreneur. And therefore I cannot be a business owner. And if I'm not an entrepreneur and I cannot be a business owner, well, what are my other alternatives? I can't just live off nothing. I need a job, right? And so that was my thinking. It wasn't until I had the great fortune of a coach to really challenge my thinking. It's like, do you think that? Or do you know that to be true? So you say you can't be an entrepreneur, you say you can't be a business owner, but do you think every business owner on the planet today had this great vision or this great idea, right? Like, so I love the fact that it really challenges your perceptions and your assumptions in a very respectful way. Obviously, you need to trust this person, right? Because otherwise you feel like, am I being strong armed or, sold something? But if you can build, if you're open to coaching and you find a coach that you can trust, oh my gosh, your perspective and your perceptions will absolutely change.
Yeah, yeah. And you said something that really piqued my attention, and it's so true. And I don't think a lot of times we don't give ourselves enough credit, but every single one of us has unique abilities, skills, talents, and superpowers, right? That sometimes when we get into that mindset and that pattern of working a regular job, we really lose sight and become detached from who we truly are and who we're called to be, what our purpose is, right? So that's the beauty of the coach, right? A coach will never tell you you're right or you're wrong. But what we do is we challenge, we nudge, we help you unpack, we walk you down the path of critical thinking, try to remove subjectivity, pull in objectivity to help each individual in their unique walk and journey arrive at a place of, now I get it. Now I see it, right? And that's the beauty of what you all do with the career coaches. I've talked with several of them, and they are so good about that exact thing. No prejudging, no telling, no directing, but just help to unpack. in a way that challenges the traditional thinking. And so it's a beautiful thing. I highly recommend.
And it's really about discovering your own superpower again, right? Because if I was trying to emulate you, Doc, right? I mean, gosh, I don't have the experience that you do. I don't, I'm not a veteran. I haven't been in the Air Force. I haven't done and yeah, I haven't done the things that you've done, and I'm not you, right? So sometimes I think we try to emulate somebody else that we actually forget what we are good at. And, a coach can definitely bring that out in you so that you can see what your transferable skills are and how they apply, whether it's the job market, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's business ownership, you name the vehicle of choice, right? So which leads me to the next part of the poll where there is a career confidence crisis, right? So people think that they simply have to tolerate these things that they're facing. And some of the threat zones include ageism and career longevity. So with this job hugging happening right now, it's like, well, do you know what? I know that I could do more. I think I provide more value, but there aren't any more jobs available. So I just better settle for this one and hold on to it because how long is it going to take me to find the next job? Or the same thing with AI and automation. I mean, people live in daily fear that, AI is going to replace them. I heard something, and I don't know who deserves credit for the quote, but it's like, don't fear AI replacing you. Fear people who are using AI replacing you, right? So it's not something that we can fight necessarily. It's something that we need to learn how to embrace because it's absolutely going to automate redundant tasks, which in a way I celebrate because, who wants to do the boring, repetitive tasks over and over again? But that is a fear. And then the third one is, as already mentioned, the toxic work environment, bad leadership, or even just the constant threat of mergers, acquisitions, right sizing, capsizing, downsizing. I don't care what you call it. I mean, so people show up to work with this monkey on their shoulder, this burden every single day. So help me understand what it must be like to live like that, and also what's going on in the minds. Why wouldn't people want to pivot?
Well, again, I think it goes back to fundamentally the fear of the unknown and change, right? Change is inevitable. I think we can all agree on that. And so one of the quotes that I use all the time is, so we can either change before we need to, or we can change because we have to. Right? And between those two, changing before you need to is so much easier, so much more comfortable than changing because you have to, right? When you put yourself in a position where you've ignored, you've put up with, you've just accepted, and you get to that point where you have to change, then you feel like your back is up against a wall. The stress, the anxiety, and the worry are just multiplied way more than if you keep your head on a swivel, explore, dive into, and then change before you need to, right? So that's the two things. And one of the things too, you talked about ageism. Sometimes I don't think, again, we give ourselves enough credit because with the amazing opportunities I have every day of coaching, speaking, and training, my age is actually an asset, not a liability, right? Because it speaks to years. I won't say years and years. I'm only 60, but it speaks to years of experience and school of hard knocks and education and different jobs, things that make me more relatable and have given me stories over the years that I can share to help other people navigate things that could save them heartache, 1, 2, 3 years of trying to figure it out, right? Same thing again as a career coach. So again, there are so many benefits to at least exploring this option, and everything you mentioned with the ageism and the toxic workplace and things like AI, right? That stuff you can't control, and it's not going to go away. But what we can control is stepping into and at least exploring the beauty that's inside of us and how we can best serve the world, right? That we can control, right? So
Yeah, I love that so much. And I'm going to have you say that quote again, too, because it strikes me, where so many people, and I'm not immune to it either, will allow the external environment, the things that I cannot control anyway, chip away and erode my own confidence and think I am too old or people don't value anymore. And you're absolutely right. Oh my gosh, I've never been wiser than I am today. I've never been more educated. I've never had more experience, right? So there is so much value in that. And I should be proud of that, right? I should be
100%.
confident that there is somebody who could use that information and benefit from it, right? So, how to keep that confidence going even in a very chaotic environment. So, what was the quote you said? You-
Was it about the change?
yes.
Yeah. So change is inevitable. So we can either change before we need to or change because we have to.
Right. So, I guess the challenge is, are you going to be reactive and wait and see what happens and live with this anxiety? Or are you going to be bold enough and embark on this hero's journey that Campbell talked about, right? To go from what you currently know to what maybe you don't know, but treat it like a science project. Be curious. And you don't need to make any decisions. As a matter of fact, one of the things I love about our coaching methodology is our coaches always say, we will work with you under two conditions: keep an open mind and make no decisions prematurely. How disarming is that? I mean, I've yet to meet the person who's like, oh, I need to keep an open mind. Do you know what, Doc? This journey is not for me, right? We all think we have an open mind until our values get challenged, until our current beliefs get challenged, right? Until our current perceptions come in question. So, I guess, again, embrace that, be curious like a child so that we can be proactive. And rather than having life happen to us, we can make informed choices. And what if these possibilities are actually even better than the ones that we have experienced thus far, right? I mean, the polls would state that people instinctively know or intellectually actually know where there may be a better path, but instinctively they revert back to what they currently know.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. So I think one of the things that we will be talking about in upcoming sessions is we'll take a deeper look into this whole thing with ageism. I think we're going to have an episode dedicated just towards that and career longevity. We'll have a session specifically about technology and AI and automation and, seeing how that impacts the workplace. And I think we'll have a episode about confidence and control to really talk about what you and I just teased out a little bit. And then we'll have an episode on generational perspectives, right? Like, what's impacting the boomers, Gen X, Gen Z, the millennials, and so forth, right? Are there any differences? And by the end of this season, we want to empower people to have a career safety plan. As a matter of fact, one of the things that they can do after this episode is take a current career threats assessment, just to kind of take a pulse on where you are right now. It doesn't need to take long. I think, if you take the assessment, it will maybe be 5 to 10 minutes of your time. And all you need to do is go to careercompassshow.com to download the assessment. So I would absolutely encourage you guys to have fun with it, lean in, be curious, and just see what potentially could be. Any final thoughts, Doc, before we wrap up here?
Yeah. So one final thought for everyone is, Carl Rogers, the renowned psychologist back in the 1970s, was doing a lot of studies, therapy, working with a lot of people. And one of the things he came to realize, and I love this quote, and it kind of changed my whole perspective in the way I fundamentally approach coaching and training and speaking. The quote he said is, "That which is most personal is most universal." So the reason I share that is if there's anyone out there listening to this and you think, well, I'm too embarrassed or no one's in my situation, no one will understand, I'm different. Just kind of again squash those prejudgments of yourself and realize that in some way, shape, or form, it's our personal experiences that connect us and tie us all together as humans. Right. So again, that's one of the things that he said is that which is most personal is most universal. You're not on an island. Someone can relate to you in some form or fashion. So just have the courage to just explore and become aware of what potential's out there.
Heck, That's the whole reason we're doing this podcast, right, Doc? Because you are not alone. You're not crazy. You're not the only one going through
Right.
it, right? Yes, maybe a lot of people around you are going through it too, but there is light at the end light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train, right? So, I mean, this is exactly why we're doing this episode, so that people maybe one soundbite at a time, one thought at a time, can actually start seeing what else is possible, right? So definitely appreciate it. And as always, Doc, it has been a lot of fun. Looking forward to
Yes.
seeing you again next episode.
Thank you all.
Well, if the trajectory of your career is currently not exciting you, if you feel that there are so many threats to your career, whether it's toxicity in the workplace, whether ageism, whether you're afraid of being replaced by AI and automation, maybe it's time to put your finger on the pulse and take the career confidence assessment just to kind of see where you may be at. I would absolutely encourage you, go to careercompassshow.com and download the link just to get a baseline for where you may be today.